we'll go into the panel session at the same time. And the way it will run is that I'll pose a couple of questions to each of the panelists, arising from some of the elements that Tamino has spoken to us about today. In no particular order, but I'd like to start with Mercy, Edukogo Amina. Maybe because you are so far away from me, not likely to react. But my first question to you, ma'am. When Tamino was speaking, he spoke about the difference between trusts and wills, and how some people still struggle with some of those concepts. But can you, from a practical perspective, tell us how trusts differ from wills, especially in terms of control, flexibility, maybe cost, and long-term wealth preservation? And then second question, I'll give you two in one. From your experience working with HNIs, high net worth individuals, what's the most common mistake people make when planning wealth transfer to serve future generations? And what practical steps should anyone in this room take to begin a structured succession planning effort, both in terms of their personal estate and business?
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, private and business. Okay, good morning once again. Yeah, thank you so much for having me this morning. So to the question, right, Mr. Tamino had really dealt with the issue of trust and also wills and the differences between them. Can I stand up?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so Mr. Tamino has also dealt with the issue of trust and wills and the distinction between them. But when we are advising clients, right, and the first thing that you look at is what is the asset class that they have. So, and if you look at it typically from a Nigerian jurisdictional perspective, it could be landed assets, it could be properties, it could be cash in the bank, it could be investment certificates, it could be just about those kind of assets. Then you start asking yourself, or you ask the client, what is most important to that client? So in terms of what they want to do eventually and how you come back to structure the estate plan for them, if you are looking at it in terms of control, you would say ordinarily that a trust would give you a lot more control. There's something we as practitioners say, especially for wealthy clients and people that have been successful in life and they have significant assets. Some clients like to control from the grave, right? So, you are dead already, but the terms of the trust that you've created, you are there every day. You are every day, everywhere. Your kids are going to the bedroom, you are following them. That's because of what you have set up. So if you're looking at control, a trust would work best. But this comes back to the asset class. What are the assets you have? For some of us, most times we start out owning assets in our individual names. And I'm saying this in terms of control, right? In our individual names. And there's no coordination to it. Oh, a friend of ours come, we just buy this one, we buy that one, we buy that one. And we buy it or we invest in them in our individual names. Now, when it comes to the point of, oh, who do I give it to? How do I pass it on? That's when you kind of get to understand that, oh, my Lord, I mean, if I've already perfected this title in my personal name, how am I going to pass it on? At that point in time, doing a trust and getting the registration requirement will be very significant cost. So that might not be the way to go. So you might look, okay, maybe I'll do a will. And in addition to do a will, I will do a pour-over trust over it, like a pour-over will over it. So in terms of control, you have to, or whatever it is you're doing, you have to look at the assets that you have, what you own, and what you can give, and also what is most important to you. Who are the people you want to give it to? For flexibility, like we will say, like we will say, at all, not bad pass. So we shouldn't. Nigerians are very familiar with the concept of wills, right? Although trust is catching up. So the first point of call to get that person to come in and say, okay, you can do things in a more structured way is probably to say, just set up a will. Just have a will. Like what Mr. Tamuno said about somebody having the premonition. He got on the plane and he was like, okay, you know what? When I come back, we'll finalize it. Those are so real. They are real. You would be shocked. You would think you are playing out a movie in front of you. And you'll be the one telling the story, but you would think maybe somebody in Hollywood or Nollywood, scripted it. Those things are real. So for flexibility, when you find out that there's a bit of dilly-dally, just do a will. Get it. Just put something. You understand? File it. Let that be there. Then let us come back and deal on maybe some core aspects of it. So for the flexibility and the ease of doing it, wills are really easy for clients. When you are thinking of trust, it's a lot more. You have to really be more intentional. There's a lot more that goes into it. In terms of cost, like I just mentioned, if you have real estate as part of your asset class and you've not had this real estate in other vehicles, you've not had it as an SPV, you've not had it as a limited liability company where you just for holding assets, and you need to transfer them into the trust. It's a different ball game. You're going to be looking at significant cost. So a will would probably be best. But for long-term wealth preservation, your focus would be on each of these asset classes. Like for example, look, each of these asset classes, what am I looking at? What is most important? Am I looking at my family harmony? Am I looking at my business continuity? Am I looking at my legacy being preserved? People have known me for a particular thing, and they associate me and my name and my person with a particular thing. Does that thing end when I'm no longer here, or would I want it to thrive and continue? When you are talking long-term wealth preservation, you are most likely going to have to use a trust, in addition to other tools that you can use. Then for assets that you just feel like maybe it's going to be too cumbersome, especially for clients that we deal with, they don't like to see, a lot of clients don't like to pay. So we'll just tell them, don't worry, you're not the one that will pay when you are doing a will, right? You tell them that it's not for you. Just sign. Because you won't be there by the time the fees for the executorship needs to be paid. But for long-term wealth preservation, you have to make sure that the right tools you are using are the ones that that will go into the generations or for that specific purposes that you want. And that would be using a trust. Maybe you use a family investment company. Maybe you set up a family office. Or maybe you set up a foundation, depending on what is most important to you. Now, for your second question, what are the common mistakes that HNI makes when it comes to their transfer of their assets, or even anybody at all? A lot of people will say, oh, I need to be rich, but most of us here, we are working, we have pension that is being deducted, our employers are also contributing to it, and some of us here are playing in the capital market. We are just doing some small things. We even have that ajo that we gather with our friends and do. Everybody has assets. So understanding that it doesn't have to be until you are at the level of a Dangote or an Elon Musk, that's when you are thinking of, okay, let me sit down. Let me now understand these things. At the very small levels, you're just starting out your career, you have a good paying job, or you have at least something that you can take home, and you are having investment, you have to start thinking about, how do I hold those investments? And we always tell young ones at heart that just incorporate an entity and use it to buy your asset. It's always easier, so that whatever it is in the future, when the 1 naira starts becoming like, oh no, this is too much, I cannot, you would have that entity and you can readily just change either the shareholding or the directorship without necessarily having to go and pay significant monies for that. But the common mistakes people make is, you wait. Nobody likes to confront mortality. So there are clients that will go to meet, and we have to pray. You just have to pray. We'll say, okay, you know what, time for prayer. Because you want to do a will, or you want to just take their instructions for their will, and you are praying. You're holding hands and you are praying that this will is not going to be, because I'm not doing it because I'm thinking of death. Death is far away from me. But that's really how we are. I think it's a cultural thing. Nigerians like life, right? And we all want long life. We want to enjoy it, whatever it is that we've worked for. We want to enjoy it to the fullest. So that's really an issue. Nobody wants to confront mortality. Nobody wants to say, I will die. But death is sure. 2 things are certain: taxes and death. I was telling a colleague of mine that I don't know if anybody has seen Bill Gates recently. He's aged, right? And you know why I'm so happy when I look at somebody like a Bill Gates, he's aged, is that, man, thank God they haven't hacked death. So nobody is going to tell us. I know some people will tell you, okay, this is what you can do so that you can still look young at certain ages and everything. But nobody has hacked death. They haven't found out what is that thing that you will do, you will re-engineer, that you will not die. So invariably, that is a level where we are all going to die. But I don't know whether they will hack it very soon and find out what you can do. But looking at a brigade, I'm like, okay, with all the money you have, and you still haven't been able to channel it into hacking debt, or it hasn't worked, because they do put monies into those kind of research and development. But bottom line is that we would all depart. And waiting until the time is perfect is not right. So like I said, you could start owning assets with a mindset of ease of transfer. And that means not necessarily using your name to buy those assets, to own those assets, but using other vehicles that are there. Other common mistakes that people make when it comes to is thinking that, for a family business, now I've talked about it for private. At the business level, Mr. Tamuno has talked about corporate governance. At the business level, if you are successful as an entrepreneur, one key thing we know and we've experienced, nobody wants to let go of control. The people that are the wealth creators, they are fantastic at creating wealth. They are entrepreneurial, they are risk takers, and they are fantastic at what they do. What they are not good at all is succession. They fail woefully in succession, except you are intentional about it. Reading about Dangote's daughters coming into his business, a lot of people, we speak with colleagues outside of the country, you see them sending you that. I'm like, okay, yes, that's fine, good one. So it means that he's actually being intentional about it. But typically, just like what Mr. Tamuno said, you go abroad, you see mom and pop stores. And those mom and pop stores are 13th generation, 14th, and you are wondering, what is all this? What are you selling? You are in one place selling croissants. He called it puff puff. So, but we will not call it puff puff. We will call it whatever it is, crepes or whatever. And that's what they do. Pastries. That's what they do. But when you come back to us, you find out that the man dies, the children, the family goes into field, and the whole wahala everything has ended. Is you are waiting for the next miracle person that will come up again to kind of. So it's almost like we are always waiting for a rebirth. We are not intentional about it. So if you have a business, you're thriving at it, what you need to do is put in those governance measures. And as family business practitioners, there are three things. You can call it the 3 circle, you can call it the 4 circle, depending on how you want to do it. There's a family circle, where everything pertaining to the family, you deal with it. There is the business circle, where everything, the board of directors, the succession plan, you deal with it. Then there's the ownership circle, where it can be that family members work in the business and they own the business. Family members are also part of the larger family group. So being able to understand in each of these circles, in each of these rooms, what are the key things, and you don't mix them up, and you know what policies you put in place is very, very important, especially for succession planning. And doing it early also is being intentional about it, and doing it early is very, very important. So really, at the end of the day, just like he said, whatever we want to do is our decision, right? So we have to be intentional about the fact that when we leave the face of this earth, both the Bible and the Quran says, arrange your affairs. The Quran says, do not die without having sorted out your assets. So at the end of the day, it comes back to us, to those that we advise, to those that we work for, on how they are able to make sure that whatever they have, those things outlive them in a way that is positive to themselves, their family, and their community at large.
Thank you very much. I was going to tell you that we'll reduce your size of breakfast for speaking for almost as long as the keynote speaker. But then you ended before you triggered that alert, so you'll get a full serving. I'd like to move on to Dr. Adedapo. The PhD really scares me. Something I wanted to do, but I just couldn't. I didn't have the discipline. But you know, as Tamuna was speaking, he illustrated, I was telling him when he came off, that he illustrated that dilemma between, when we all join employment, we fill all these next of kin forms. Then when we're doing our life insurance thingy bob, we also do a separate beneficiary identification for next of kin for insurance purposes. I know there's been some judicial decision as to the provenance of the one done for insurance in the case of a death, whilst in the case of the next of kin for normal employment, it appears like it's not really valid. It can't survive if there's a will. But the one for insurance apparently is, but I mean, all these forms that you all get us signing, you are taking a bank mortgage, you also indicate a next of kin there. I mean, we sign all these things. And what Tamuna is telling us is that it can create tensions. So what I would like to understand from you is, should all this be consolidated, or is there a better way, or what's been your own experience managing the kind of conflicts that can arise when there's multiplicity of identification? And in addition, I mean, being an HR professional yourself, do you think people actually understand what they're doing when they fill those forms? Because I've been in a situation where the gentleman said, oh yes, I filled my brother when I joined employment because at that time he was fresh from university, he wasn't married, and things change over time. Yeah. So do you think people understand the difference, and how can this distinction be clearly communicated to employees, including periodic updates, if you think such are required? That will be the first question. And also, what patterns have you observed in employee non-compliance with HR directives on completing this information? And because I may not have time to come back to you, I'll throw in a third one. Yeah. When the records do not align, how should HR respond to such discrepancy? And I will also warn you that if you speak for too long, you won't get breakfast. So please, let's do it quickly.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. Thank you for the question, and it's good to be here. Thank you for having me, SSK. I hope I can call you that, and the Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Tamino, thank you so much for your session. I mean, I kept wondering, what are we going to say after all this? You've done justice to the topic already, and I like that we started the flow from hearing from the legal experts. You've set a very good foundation for the conversation. So very interesting questions, and this is a very sensitive topic, I must add. And for everyone in the room that will be listening in and learning, we all have a duty, we all have a responsibility to do better in our different quarters. Now I'm going to speak to the questions from two different angles. There is the HR and organizational angle, and there is the employee angle, which also represents the individuals themselves, and how even we as a people must do better in even enforcing our HR departments and our employers to do the right things. Now, when HR follows up with you and tells you this documentation you must fill, culturally, as a people, Nigerians, Africans, we are very superstitious and sentimental, and I reject it, I can't die. Are you trying to say I will die? You know, that has to be a thing of the past. First of all, this is 2026. We must be working on our level of exposure to understand that when we call something eventuality, it is because nobody prepares for it. It just happens, and we don't plan for it. So you don't plan for it, but you must prepare for it if it happens. And that's why we must keep on having these conversations to get ourselves and our thought process ready for things like this. That said, I'm saying even when your organization is not mature enough or responsible enough to get you to do the right thing, put pressure on your organization, your employers, your HR departments to ensure that you and your family are covered if in case of eventuality. That's as a people. Now back to organizations. HR has a very important role to play in this, and employers as well. So the first question, what is the difference between a next of kin and a beneficiary? A next of kin is simply someone that we can contact in case of emergency. Or we can't reach you, you're sick, or you had an accident, or we need to get information from you or something, and we can't reach you. We go into your records, get your next of kin, and reach out to them and ask questions about you. Maybe we're checking on you, your wealth, or you traveled or something, just different examples. That is the purpose of a next of kin, and that would cut across different forms that you might fill in the hospital, insurance, even your at the point of recruitment, you're trying to get a benefit or what have you. Now, a beneficiary has a very intentional purpose of which you're being asked to fill that information. So you get into an organization and you're given a set of forms for different things, HMO, insurance, for your salary, pay, and all of that. For example, you're given a form that states who are your beneficiaries. If it's one person, if it's multiple people, how would you want the sharing formula to be? And you can have as many as possible. You can have 3, 4, 5 beneficiaries and say, 20% to this person, 10%, 15%. In the organizations that I have worked and I've led, we ensure to do that so that you as the owner of the estate, or you as the owner of the funds, or whatever it is you might have, in case of eventuality, you have by yourself said, anything I'm getting from this organization, share it among 4 people. Give my wife, give my brother, give my aged father, and use such and such percentages to share. Now that's a beneficiary form. And if you're an HR person in this room, you don't have that in place, please go and establish it. Have that form that details it. If you're an individual and in all the years you've worked in your organization, no one has ever presented that document to you, please go and make a case for it and let them know. Now that's the difference between next of kin and beneficiary. Now in the case where you do life insurance or different insurance and different forms are being given to you, that's not a tidy thing to do. Let's ensure that our processes are simple, devoid of duplication, devoid of confusion. That's one of the many areas we fail as organizations and as HR departments. Too many forms overload, information overload, jagbajansis everywhere, and we are not coordinated, we are not organized, and that's why employees don't even take us serious to start with. So you know you have an employee, you're going to do group life for them, you're going to do HMO for them. Have one process, especially when you now go the extra mile to digitize and leverage technology. Technology makes a lot of things easy. That way you have a database, and once I enter my information into the database, it can cut across different portals and channels that you will need it. Because it's when you give me 15 different forms, I might not remember what I filled the last time I filled the form. So I'm going to enter something different. And yes, so there's a place of, number one, simplifying the process. Number two, there's a place of updates, regular, consistent updates. And you must stress this. You're joining as a youth copper, as a fresh graduate who just finished serving. Of course, you don't have a family. Of course, you're not married. Of course, you don't have children. But what happens 5 years down the line when you walk the aisle? The day you're coming back from your honeymoon and you resume, the first thing we are hammering to you is, come and update your information. Your address has changed. You have an additional qualification. Information updates is something that must be regular. And I find that it's only in this part of the world we struggle with that. When you go outside of the confines, you see that we don't struggle with updates. It's something even you will be feeling uncomfortable because the database is so solid that if you put a wrong information, you won't be able to access certain benefits because it will be blocked, because they will run checks through your database and they won't be able to find you. So we have to keep learning from these, the right way to do things. Let's ensure that we consistently follow up with our employees. If anything has changed about you, come and update it. Now to the last question around what happens when, and these things happen a lot, I've seen it in my many years of practice, people will feel, either they don't feel it because they're not ready to die, and I keep asking, who is ready to die? Who actually leaves their house and decides, I'm not sure I want to come back home? Maybe, nobody has that thought process. So we just have to do the right thing. Now, when it happens that either employees don't feel the information at all, or they feel different thing, now I've found that when it happens, we've had cases of employees that were deceased, and you find that even the employee themselves had a problem with their wives being the next of kin or the beneficiary, even in cases where they feel beneficiary. So what I'm going to say to HR professionals is that 4 important things you must pay attention to. Number one is that you have to deal with empathy, but you can't, because you want to empathize, run on sentiment or biases. Empathy is one of the most important things. Secondly is fairness. So yes, as an HR professional, you have to be able to be sensitive when there is monkey shadow being played, when games are being played in front of you. Because sometimes the more you look, the less you see. And some family members are just so gifted in playing drama. They will dramatize in front of you. You wonder, you will not know what has been happening. This is a family. You are just an employer. You see the employee every day. You don't know what they are dealing with. You don't know what they are going through. You don't even know that the marriage that they have is the weapon fashioned against them. But you are there not having insight or context into all these things. So ensure that you are not in the middle of family drama first of all. Now there's a place of empathy. There's a place of objectivity. There's a place of fairness. There's a place of legality. You must ensure that you have a good balance of all of these 4 things. And I'll stress it again. Empathy, number one, is what ensures that you can take a step back, assess the situation, devoid of any sympathy or biases, because I've had an HR colleague that lost her husband years before, and she went through a lot. She was severely cheated out of her husband's inheritance and all of that. And because of that, when another employee passed on and the wife was helpless, it was very easy for her to put herself in the situation. What happened to me must not happen to another woman. Yes, it's valid. However, ensure that the sense of objectivity that makes you check all the records and ensure that you are working with the records in front of you, especially when you have to think about the legality of what you're doing. You're not going to leave any stone unturned. You're not going to take any chances. You're not going to take any risk just because of what happened to you. So I'm speaking from a very personal experience of how we have to be careful in the way we make our judgment calls, in the way we allow or disallow certain things. So I'll go back to empathy. Because we know that in this part of the world, in our native and traditional families, you would always have that tussle most of the time between family of the deceased and the wife of the deceased. Now again, do not get in the middle of the family drama. What to do in such situation is where you can see that people are, so there's someone who is engaging you, another person is trying to engage you from behind. Something as the very first thing is, if there was no will and there was no letter of beneficiary, get the letter of administration from the court. That's like the proper way to go about it. And in cases where somebody is trying to present a letter of administration that is completely outside of all of that, you have to ensure that you are very, very balanced in your perspective. Also, fairness. When you see that someone is being victimized unnecessarily, try to have a conversation. And when all of this fails, it was like that, like our keynote speaker shared with us, there are extreme situations where you don't even release the funds because there is no documentation or records, appropriate records to back up the decision you need to make. You keep it in a trust. And even if it means that your organization goes the extra mile to create to open up that trust, even if the expenses of the trust, of creating the trust, to be borne by the organization, just a few extra amounts, just to ensure that you can secure those funds and let the process take its place. But most importantly for me, for HR professionals, is that ensure that in your empathy and in your trying to be fair, you don't go against what is objective, what you have legal backing to do. You don't use personal sentiment, and you don't get yourself in the middle of family drama. I believe I've been able to answer the questions.
Thank you.
Thank
That was rendered so powerfully, and I learned something from that as well, using those 4 cardinal points you mentioned: empathy, objectivity, whilst at the same time following legality. And there was the first one, fairness to everybody concerned. And then you said, don't get involved in the family drama. Don't come with bias or foresight. Just deal with the issues and don't get your company into litigation.
Yes. Personal experience. I've had someone that it was after he passed, we're reviewing the forms he filled, and he said, whatever you do, make sure that my wife does not get a penny. And we were all shocked. Like, this person is married to this person. This woman has children for you. And you are very vehemently stating in your words, he signed it. I had not joined the organization at the time, but in the course of processing it. So in such a case, what do? This is fact staring in your face. You're a woman, you will feel empathy to the woman, but you don't know the water that has passed under the bridge. Some people are married to their worst enemies and you don't know. So sometimes we assume that the brothers are being the one, they're trying to take over what is rightfully the woman's. But the ologbe, like you used to say, the deceased person sometimes have their very strong reasons why you shouldn't do certain things. And if you go against that, you will have yourself to blame.
Thank you very much. So empathy, objectivity, fairness, and legality. Keywords. Thank you so much. I saw someone recording. Maybe I'll ask for the clip to be shared with me as well. Our last panelist for the day, before I turn to Tamuna for his closing remarks, is Mr. Stanley Onosa. And I've got 2 questions for you, sir. Last but not the least by any means. I just needed to take the ladies first. It's March, and this is the month for women. So we need to honor and respect our women. So, Stanley, at what stage in life or business growth should someone begin structured succession planning? How can early planning, we've talked about handing it over to the next generation, but how can it actually preserve wealth, or in a sense, even provide a basis for wealth multiplication? rather than just distributing what the settler has gathered over the years. Because, I mean, I guess if you're writing a will, all you are doing is distributing. But, I mean, we want to go beyond simply passing over. How do we use that tool, that instrument, to actually multiply wealth, preserve wealth, not dissipate it? And if you want to also weigh in on what Dr. Adidapo had weighed in on earlier, in terms of where an employee dies intestate and beneficiaries named in the beneficiary nomination form are different from those that are entitled under the rules of intestacy, what approach should a company adopt in determining the proper recipients to the employee's terminal benefits? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. This subject matter is very interesting, very personal, applicable to everyone in the room, whatever we're doing, whether we're business owners, we're employees, and all that. So the first question is, at what stage in life or at what stage in your business growth should you consider succession planning? Like we have heard from all the speakers, it is something that you have to be intentional about. Once you have something that can be bequeathed, your terminal benefits can be bequeathed, then you must have a plan. And like we have said, because people don't like to talk about death, you know, it's morbid, it's a morbid discussion, you know, my enemy and all those kind of things, people make no arrangements. And so, like everyone has said, in the course of work, we have seen it, you know, employees that die. I mean, we have practical cases. We have a case that is in court right now, and it's because no arrangement was made. If there's anything that you must take from this, for yourself and for your business, make an arrangement. If you don't make an arrangement will be made for you, and it's not likely to be what you would have wanted to happen after you have gone. So once you have something to bequeath, then you should make an arrangement. Have a will prepared and make sure that things are done properly. Same also for the business. You have to think ahead of the business. When I pass on, how do I want this business to continue? And that's why the keynote speaker was talking about consulting experts. That's another problem we have in our clients. Experts are too expensive. But like they always say, try the cost for not consulting the expert. You discover you lose the whole thing. So you have a business, the business is growing. How do you want it to thrive after you are gone? You have to be deliberate about it. And that's where some of the questions that were raised. Naturally, you may want your children to take over. But is that the best thing based on how your business is running? And if it's your children, which of your children? So you have to be intentional about that. And then you marry that as well with your holding, your shareholding of the company. Because with proper advice, that can be structured in a way that your business continues to run in the manner which you want it. So once you have something to bequeath, you should start making a plan. Now, how does early planning preserve wealth rather than just distribute it? So just like a lot of the speakers have said, it will preserve the wealth because you are the one determining what is going to happen. If you want to do, like we have been told, you want your business to just be a mom and pop shop for generations to come, so be it. You set it up that way. If you want a business that is going to grow over time, you set it up that way. But if you don't do that, and all you have done is, after I've gone, my son will take this, my daughter will take this, that's what leads to businesses just dying off after the owner has died. Because that is not entrenching succession. So, as has been said, maybe because I'm the last speaker, I'll be repeating a lot of things, so you bear with me. In the succession planning, particularly there is a business. There is the running of the business itself, the business surviving. And then there is the benefit for your dependents and stakeholders of that business. They are two separate things, but you must work them together to achieve what you want. And so if you don't make the plan with proper advice, then whatever you may be dreaming of is not what is going to happen. So you are consciously, this business, like has been said, you bring in proper corporate governance. You know, here we like the one-man thing. One man control, one man absolute benefit. And, you know, people coming to work, they are not part of the business. And so when you die, they all go away. Your son can come and take over. He doesn't know the beginning or the end. But when you structure, you know, you want it to succeed, those that started and are growing with the business, they have a stake in the business, they're not going to leave. So that's the thing with planning. So you need to plan, not just in the moment, but for the long term. And then if an employee dies intestate and the named beneficiaries, now like Doc has rightly said, is really challenging. But as the employer, you are just bound to follow what the law says. Because several times you try to interpret, you try to help, and you discover that you get burnt. The organization gets into trouble, the person you are trying to help is not helped, they even have their own agenda, you know. So many times, unfortunately, and that's why it's important to plan. If you have planned and you have prepared your will, once you pass on, the lawyer will go and get the probate, and then it's very easy for everybody. But if you didn't plan, and then it depends on the kind of family you have. We have people that have passed on, and in their next of kin, there's somebody that is named, and that one shows in the office, no child, and there's somebody else that has 4 children, and that one comes to the office as well. You know, and you discover that you are trying to get them to talk, they are not ready to talk. They are not ready to talk. So you have to tell them, please, until I see letter of administration. And sorry, even letter of administration is not the solution. This one will go and get letter of administration and publish in the papers that nobody will see. This other one goes and get letter of administration. And so you have 2 letters of administration. That's why if there's any takeaway from here, it is that you must make your arrangement. Yeah, so what approach should the company take? So that is it. The company will always follow the law, and that's the safest position to take. And so more of the responsibilities on the individual. The company will help, like has been said here. Staff should be talked to. HR will prepare the forms. They should be encouraged to make proper arrangements to avoid crisis after they have gone. I have seen it over and over. The stories are many. Let me just share one before I round up. Where I was working sometime, there was a twin. He was a twin, and he had a twin brother. And so he was ill for a very long time. And then he got ill to the point that he was practically incapacitated. And while he was still in the hospital, he had made a will. Funnily, he had made a will, and in the will, he had made his twin brother the executor. And so while he was in the hospital, to all intents and purposes, about to die, the twin brother started harassing the family. The wife, the man has not died. It's after we got to realize all this, because he did all that, and the fellow recovered briefly. God must be kind to him. So he recovered briefly, and in those few days he recovered, with the report of the wife, he changed the will and passed everything properly to the wife and the children. Now his twin brother didn't know. We attended the funeral. You need to see the twin brother crying. He was crying more than the wife. And we all thought, oh my goodness, he must have loved his brother. It was after all said and done that we came and realized the whole story. So even a twin brother. So you must make your arrangement. Plan ahead, get proper advice, make arrangement. That's the best thing to do. Thank you very much.
Very, very sobering.